What are you talking about?
Illusion of Gaia. I was saying, actually, 20 years
Ah.
good games with bad translations and stories. The story in that for Illusion of Gaia is amazing, but the translation makes it so awkward. And it's one of those cult classic games.
Shout out to translators. They don't get enough respect. There's like
Hell
so much
yeah.
fucking disrespect against translators these days, and I don't fucking get it. I don't understand.
No. That's a big focus of my channel actually is fan translations and ROM hacks. Because these people are doing God's work. You know, like there's so many amazing games just never came to the West.
Yeah!
You did it!
You did it, gamers!
Strawbies in chat. Get your strawbies out.
In chat. Oh my god.
But I'm kind of pumped for 16 to come out because, like, even though I haven't really gone into 14, knowing that Yoshi P is in charge of 16 gives me good hope. Because
you get the 14 experience without playing 14.
Well, yeah, I just know we're in solid hands. Like Nomura and Kataze and that mob have kind of been pretty hit and miss, I think, for the past 10 years or so. you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like creative Division 1 is like, not what it used to be. And yeah, I think we're going to get a solid game in 16 regardless.
You know, there's so many misconceptions about translation. Like, people use the word localization in a derogatory way, and it's so fucking weird. Like, I think people are still stuck in the mindset that every localization is like 4Kids, like turning onigiri into jelly-filled donuts. Like, that's like an exception among exceptions. Games and media don't really do that anymore. But these people act like that's what the job of localization is, to just like erase cultural context and make everything anglicized. And it's not. It's just...
My favorite example of this is Woolsey, Ted Woolsey, who did Final Fantasy VI, you know, and he cops so much shit for the translation of Final Fantasy VI. But like Kefka is Woolsey's creation, basically, right? Like Kefka in the Japanese is a completely different proposition, right? Like he's like just this very angry kind of like unhinged, dangerous clown type figure. He doesn't have these wonderful turns of phrase like son of a submariner and like all these like iconic things that were added in the process of localization, because in the Japanese version Kefka swears all the time. Like,
oh wow,
Kefka's just dropping, like curses and stuff, and they couldn't do that in America. And like Woolsey did such a good job.
They're censoring Kefka.
Yeah, I know, right? It's just like, but the reason he's such a beloved character is because they actually put some effort into the localization, and people will just like hammer Woolsey for like, a few like simplifications here and there, but it's like, look at what he added to this game. Like,
everyone thinks they're an expert on translation.
Yeah,
and most of these people have never fucking studied Japanese in their lives.
Yeah, well, that's another.
If you want the pure experience, learn the language yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Because you're not getting the Japanese text, you're getting a new text, and that's what people need to realize. Localizers are going to do their best to represent the original text as authentically and understandably as possible, but it is fundamentally a different text. And you need to realize that translators are writing an experience that you're going to internalize as the narrative. So you can't say that you've read the same thing as a Japanese work, even if like it's as close as possible. You need to understand that translators are the writers, right? They are putting their own personality into it, and that's not erasing the original. That's just how translation works.
Yeah.
Translation isn't science. It's an art. It's something that needs interpretation. The other God. That's hilarious.
Legend.
That's a legendary comment. Holy shit. Translator liberation. Let's go. I'm sorry. Oh.
But yeah, I think the goal of localization is to help maintain the spirit of an original line, which sometimes involves a lot of changes to the line and the original intention, just because some cultural contexts don't transfer as neatly as others. So it's an art. There's a lot of nuance to it. Like, are you going to go like the literalist approach, or are you going to try and make sure the joke lands close to the same way as it did in the original, or at least like it's gonna like read the same way or have the same impact?
I think that. Sorry.
No worries. I was just gonna say I wish I could think of a good example off the top of my head.
I can probably think of a good example. Sorry, what were you looking for an example of?
Localizations that, while they change something about like the original work, it's in the spirit of translating the sort of the cultural conscious or context for the line so that it would make sense to a foreign audience.
What Len brought up, Surrender Bounds, is the Japanese localization of Undertale. I think that's a really interesting one because, like, what in Undertale they do to kind of show personality of characters is they have this little quirk where certain characters have certain fonts. So like Papyrus and Sans, the big example. Where Sans is Comic Sans and Papyrus is Papyrus, and that says a lot about their personality straight from the get-go. Like Sans, like usually is acting very aloof, not very serious. Where Papyrus is like very high and mighty, very nicely, and at least trying to be. And you know, how do you kind of represent that in Japanese? Because Japanese doesn't have the same fonts. And one thing they did is they actually changed the dialect the characters speaking.
Yeah.
And that's like not really, dialect isn't analogous between English and Japanese. Like sometimes, basically what the closest we get is whenever a character has a dialect that isn't Tokyo, they're given like a southern accent in a dub. Like, they say y'all a lot and stuff like that. And it's not really the same. But we have to
the other thing that happens is they get given like a ye olde English kind of you know, like thous and these, you know, because it's some very arcane way of speaking.
Yeah, that's it. Because there's so many different dialects and like, not even dialects, but just different manners of speaking depending on who you're speaking to and all that kind of thing. Japan is like, tone is like, well, not just tone, but like the different methods of speech to communicate different intents are a really big deal in Japanese. Yeah, it's a lot. And translating all those differences is like impossible to do one-to-one. So you gotta try and approximate where you can. And some of those are more successful than others, but yeah, that's what we mean. Like, it's very much an art.
I find the literalist approach just, it makes me sad because like a work of art doesn't have a literal meaning usually, or if it does, then I'm not that very interested in it. Like, it's to be read and understood. The
literal meaning is machine translations, and they don't make any sense.
Like, it's kind of saying that there is an objective reading of this work, and then it can just be translated between cultures and you know, whatever, and if like
opinions of people who've never translated anything in their life.
Or even if it does contain things like idioms and sayings that we don't really have in this language, even if there are like perfectly good words for it, like they just don't make sense because there's cultural context that's missing, you know. Like that just ignores the flow of the work, you know. If it's just like a snappy brief saying, but you've got to actually like Google what the fuck does, you know, like this fruit at this time of year mean, you know, like that's you've ruined the flow of the artwork, you know. Like it's supposed to be a snappy little saying.
Yeah. You don't want like a 10-page translator note explaining a bit of dialogue. You need to keep the flow going.
Yeah, like it just ignores all the pieces of the art and kind of like, you know, and there's like this kind of like I haven't seen so much from them lately, but like, you know, the kind of objectivist, like movie critic kind of people who think that there's like movies have objective meanings and this movie is objectively bad. The Last Jedi is objectively bad, you know? Like that's just the vibes I get from it. Like, no, there's no definitive reading of this. You have to interpret it. Going between languages is an extreme act of interpretation, and so you've got to expect, like...
It's exactly the same kind of people that are going to be like, oh, there's only 2 genders. Like,
yeah, totally,
like
totally.
The same sort of brainworms. It's all intersectional. It's like, yeah, the world is kind of a lot more complicated than that. Yeah. And things are subjective, you know? Experience is subjective. I wish more people understood that. Fucking, my biggest peeve is the whole, like, CinemaSins trend. Like,
God,
yeah,
I
totally.
know.
reducing media to bullet points that you can make gotchas out of. It's like, oh my god, is this really what it's come to? And the worst part is when you have movies that will actively try to be like CinemaSins proof, and it's just like, oh.
Oh god, it's so boring. It's so boring.
Exactly.
Like, why would you want to... Anyway, we've got a few comments
Anyway,
in...
Last Jedi is good. What's the final one called?
I don't
Rise
know.
of Skywalker. Oh
That one
god,
fucking
that's
sucks.
the time.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree that sucks.
Yeah.
But I actually like Last Jedi, and I feel like a lot of people, you know, it's not perfect, but I feel like it was trying to do some really bold and interesting statements, and it's like the negative feedback made them abandon all of that in the 3rd movie, and it's like, well, that was pointless.
Well, they changed directors again as well, right? Like, they brought back J.J.
Yeah.
Abrams, who's just
Yeah.
like bang bang shooty guy. Like, he can't tell a story.
Yeah,
Like,
I fucking love Lost, but, you know, I don't think he's the reason I love it.
yeah.
And
Like,
here's the thing. Oh, sorry, you don't mean to cut anyone off. Please keep going.
No, go on. Go on.
I was just gonna say, like, J.J. Abrams' whole approach to stories, the puzzle box theory.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
you can set up mysteries and you never need to make good on them. Because, like, they'll hook an audience. Like, I maybe would bring J.J. Abrams in to start your franchise.
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
I would
He
never
does great
ask him to
pilot
finish
episodes,
it.
Yeah.
Because he has
Which
no
is-
idea where it's going thematically or coherently, and he doesn't really care.
Which
I
is
really
exactly what they did. Like, the episode 7 was J.J. Abrams. Then they had such a bad response to episode 8, just basically from like racists and like misogynists being like, why are there Asian women in my movie? Like,
Yeah. You know, the whole message of, like, fighting fascism with love is, like, fucking awesome and based. Like,
yeah.
and people just hated that. They fucking hated it.
And they chickened the fuck out. And
They did.
yeah, like, and it's such an unsatisfying conclusion. They're like, oh, she's actually, well, I won't give spoilers, but it sucks.
Yeah, that was... What was that? Like, you know, we even had a point where Finn was, like, set up to be, like, a new, like, Jedi. And, like,
Yeah.
they abandoned that.
Yeah.
I guess because he's black. I don't know.
They just completely dumped Finn and Rose had a really good arc.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, they put Rose on a bus for like the
Yeah.
whole last movie.
yeah, or just sat her in the room with like deep fake Carrie Fisher. Like,
Deep fake Carrie Fisher, yeah. Rest in peace. But yeah.
but we do have some comments in chat. Another thing in Undertale was like they would have their languages read in certain ways, either from left to right, like you would read in English, but also had literally right to left too for some dialogue. So that's really cool.
Oh, wasn't like Papyrus, like I might be remembering this wrong. Was his text like, you know, top to bottom, like an old Japanese scroll? Because that makes perfect sense in my head. Am I imagining that? Because that sounds awesome. I might be imagining that.
Cannot
Correct me if I'm
confirm.
wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, though.
But Lobo says as well, the phrase "maybe it'll rain tomorrow" in English and Japanese mean completely different things as well. So, yeah,
Can you elaborate on that? I'm not familiar with that.
I cannot
Some
either.
chat engagement happening. Come on, chat.
Papyrus. The answer is yes.
I was right. Yeah. So like, you know, like Japanese writing style, like modern writing is more just like right to left, more like a normal book. But like, you know, old Japanese writing was usually like top to bottom. Like, you see this on, like, you know, like parchments and scrolls and shit. And, like, that's fucking perfect for a character named Papyrus. It's so clever. All his dialogue is top to bottom. Oh, it's great. Yeah, I forgot about that. That's awesome.
Greedy for that strawberry.
This is a yes. I'm dying a lot. This doesn't seem like it should be that hard. I think I might need to pay more attention to what I'm doing.
Nah, something help you.
Just vibe.
Just vibe. Whoa.
Oh.
Easy does it. Nice and slow. Nice and slow.
Lobo's not
Yeah.
feeling real good. Gonna dip. Bye bye bye.
Okay.
Take care.
Catch you later, Lobo. Thank you for dropping by. I hope you feel better soon.
Mask1N. Want to shout
Yes.
out Legends of Localization. It's a blog/book series helmed by the main guy behind the Mother 3 translation, which is Tomato, I think.
Yep.
Tomato
Good old
fucking
Mato.
rules. I've played so many of Tomato's localizations. They are such a legend. Like another one, like a font type one that they've done is the fan translation, the Eon Genesis fan translation of Live Alive, which is getting a re-release later this year.
Shout out to Live Alive.
Live Alive is fucking sick. I think it's. I've written a little essay about it on my blog. I think it is far superior to Octopath Traveler. Came out in 1994.
It's the original Octopath Traveler.
It
Yeah.
really fucking is. It really, really is. And it goes so hard. But what they do, there's like 8 different chapters in that and 8 different main characters. And you've got to like they've all got a different font which like displays their like kind of like I don't know, like a little bit about the scenario that you're in kind of thing, which is like they're really different. Like, you know, there's the cowboy scenario and a sci-fi scenario and like a feudal Japan scenario and a you know the Chinese
China.
yeah. So like the way they handled, you know, what would be done with like very different kind of like approaches to dialogue, you know, since they're all in English, it's kind of a little bit more difficult to parse that apart, but they use fonts to handle that. So good. So fucking good.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Did
such a
Mato
real-
do that one?
Yeah, as part of the Eon Genesis team, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's top dude. I mean, like, that Legends of Localization book is so fucking insightful. Yeah. Good shout out.
They've done so many really important translations, like and like localization is preservation too, right? Like
Yes.
It's true.
it keeps games alive. Like just having people playing them.
I remember I was, who was it? I need to remember the YouTuber. I was watching a YouTuber, gay dude that covers a lot of like niche anime and games and stuff. And he was just like talking about how he was like, his problematic past is he realized he was gay by reading like a really independent Japanese Bada visual novel that he found. It was like super smutty, but like no one like bothered to translate past the first chapter, so he only ever had the first chapter to read. And it was like so formative for his development. And then in the course of editing the video, he's like, holy shit, someone actually translated more of it since I last checked. It's like so thankful. Preserving this little like indie game that's probably sold in Comic Get nowhere else. It's just like someone else like cared enough to actually preserve that to English audiences. It's like, man, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I can really attest to that because I'm a big fan of Japanese visual novels, and for the longest time they were the nichest medium possible. It really was so rare for any visual novel to get localized into English. The first commercial localization of a visual novel I found, and I know there were others, but the first I found was a little DS game called Time Hollow. Not that good. kind of sucked, but just exposing me to the medium of visual novels was like a big deal back then because I'd never seen anything like it before. It's like, wait, you can have games that are just text? What the fuck? Where's the gameplay? But also, I love this because I love stories in video games. And I think it's a really interesting format to tell a story. Like, it's like you get the experience of reading a book, but you also get the addition of like graphics and music. Sometimes the music in these visual novels is fucking outstanding because they know you're going to be spending a lot of time listening to it, and it can really set the tone for a scene. And it's like, yeah, what a fucking great medium. And for the longest time, the Western publishers completely dismissed the genre because, like, granted, a lot of visual novels, popular visual novels, were just like, you know, games where you talk to girls, and that was seen as like obscene or like weird. And you know, you know, there's definitely porn stuff out there, and you know, that is what it is. But a lot of it's just been perfectly innocent, like, but even the innocent stuff was seen as completely like foreign, and just people just couldn't get into the idea, no matter how much like it was tried to be pushed. It's just, yeah, it's just seen as really creepy to spend a game talking to girls. But now it's like kind of really popular. Like the visual novels are booming in the West, especially like with independent English creations are really like getting a big boom. Even like shout outs to Necro Barista. I personally haven't read it, but I need to shout it out because it's a Melbourne-based visual novel. It's about basically, I think it's like you're working as a barista in a Melbourne cafe, but it's like the Melbourne afterlife. So it's like really neat concept. I need to play it sometime. But yeah.
Hi there, first-time viewer Elena Wispangle Shipper. Can I recommend a trans-developed game from 1983?
Yes, you can. Please.
That has influenced Miyamoto and will write.
What? Yeah? What
Let's
is
go.
it? Let's go.
Mule.
I've never heard of this. Bring up the Wikipedia quickly, Ultra. This sounds really interesting. Oh, I keep getting the angle wrong. What am I doing? Thank you for that confirmation.
Well, you're too greedy for that strawberry.
I need a strawberry.
Chat needs a strawberry. All I'm getting
is... It's not
is...
a hope or a dream. It's like a hunger, a thirst. I need the strawberry.
Okay, Mule is a seminal multiplayer video game written for the Atari 8-bit family of home computers by Ozark Softscape. Designer Danielle Bunton Berry, credited as Dan Bunton, took advantage of the 4 joystick ports of the Atari 400 and 800 to allow 4-player simultaneous play. Mule was one of the first 5 games published in 1983 by new company Electronic Arts. Anyone heard of them?
What?
Alongside Axis Assassin, Archon, The Light and Dark Worms, and Hard Matt Mac. Primarily a turn-based strategy game, it incorporates real-time elements where players compete directly, as well as aspects that simulate economics.
What? This was trans-developed, was it? Is this Daniel?
Yes.
Person? Is that their dead name? Like, are they trans?
Danielle is her name.
Danielle. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and they are trans. Which also reminds me of
oh, that's unfortunate.
a really good article I read recently about the was it the
Ultros delete. Oh shit! There's a couple of them. Ultros.
Yeah, I'm getting on it. I'm getting on it.
Family estate is deep south. I refuse to acknowledge her. Oh, that's so sad. Oh my god, I've never heard of this game either. What the fuck? This sounds awesome too. Like a multiplayer strategy game for the Atari? What? Are you kidding me? I'm so interested in learning more about this. Thank you for that recommendation. Wow. Trans history is everywhere you look, guys. Like,
Yep.
we so often, you know, nobody talks about it, but there's so much trans representation in the media we love. Why do I keep going up right? It's like the control stick, the D-pad is fucked.
Speaking of trans game developers, it reminds me of a story of basically the sole programmer who was responsible for porting Doom to the 3DO.
Yes! Let's go.
Yes!
No, I don't. Never
Strawby
mind.
in chat. Strawby in chat.
No, didn't get it.
Let's get them strawberries in chat. Oh, you didn't get it, but the 1,000 thing popped.
Oh, did it?
I saw 1,000 on the screen.
Alright,
I
we
think
need
you
to
got that
confirm. We need to
strawberry.
confirm. I
No
got
strawberry.
it. Yeah, strawberries in chat.
Strawberries in chat. Show us your strawberries, love.
Oh, yes. Now I can fucking beat this easy level. It's so easy now.
Basically, this guy bought the rights to Doom. Hey!
Hey. Oh, no.
And basically built up this big company saying that he was gonna make this new port of Doom, and they were like adding new levels and new weapons and all this kind of stuff, and then it was great and it was gonna run awesome on the 3DO, and then just basically didn't do anything with it for like fucking ages, until like release date was really coming, and yeah, basically there was just this trans woman who like put it all together in such a rushed amount of time, but then like she got out of this trans and everyone like turned on her and was like, she didn't even get like credited for the port, and it's gone down as like the worst port of Doom in Doom history kind of thing. But like the fact that it even exists is just purely down to this woman's genius. Like she was left with nothing, like had no one had done any work on the port kind of thing.
Yeah.
She had like a month to fix it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Seamus in 1982, designed by Catherine Mataga. All right, can we get that one up too?
And Gorf by Jamie Faye Fenton.
All these old games. I feel like most of my knowledge goes back to like NES games. I really don't know much about Atari games. It's a gap in my video game knowledge. What's this new mechanic? Samus Aran is trans. Yeah. That's like a whole thing. And there's a lot of discourse about that, and I don't really want to get into it, but look. There is a point of evidence that Samus is trans, so if you identify with that, that's fucking awesome.
Seamus
Please continue.
Alright, Seamus is a flip screen shooter with light action adventure game elements written by Catherine Mataga and published by Synapse Software. The original 8-bit original Atari 8-bit family version is 16 kilobytes in size and was released on disc and tape in 1982. The game was ported to the Apple II, VIC-20, Commodore 64, TRS-80 color computer, TI-99 4A, and IBM PC, which means you can play it on a lot of maths calculators. That's cool. Several of these were published by Atari Soft. It was later sold on cartridge by Atari Corporation following the launch of Atari XEGS in 1987. Funeral March of a Marionette, the theme song from Alfred Hitchcock Presents, plays on the title screen.
Wow.
Seamus made the company famous by giving it a reputation for quality, according to Ihor Volosenko.
Wow.
So great job, Catherine. And Gorf. Gorf is an arcade game released in 1981 by Midway Manufacturing, whose name was advertised as an acronym for Galactic Orbiting Robot Force. It is a fixed shooter with 5 distinct levels, the first of which is based on Space Invaders and another on Galaxian. The game makes heavy use of synthesized speech for the Gorfian robot, which teases the player. Powered by the Vortrax speech chip. Gorf allows the player to buy 2 additional lives per quarter before starting the game for a maximum of 7 lives.
Strawberry. We've got Win to contend with now.
Robbie.
Which,
Wow.
yeah, that's... I remember when like synthesized speech in video games was such a huge deal. Like,
Right?
Would have been such a mind-blowing experience to experience that for the first time. The
Also,
one I always think of is the one I think of is Sinistar. That one's iconic.
also, I can't believe a trans woman invented microtransactions.
Maybe we don't talk about that.
Girls can do anything.
It's true. Honestly,
Girls
Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss.
get it done. No. Would you buy an NFT if it was a trans person? Okay.
No, but I would absolutely hope that some cis folks go ahead and get scammed by that person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That would be the right thing.
Make bank.
Congratulations on the strawberry.
We did not endorse NFTs.
Returning to localization matters, my favorite localization in the world was also written by a trans woman. Miria is her name, and she did the 1998, I think, localization of or maybe 96. Yeah, but it's probably 96 localization of Final Fantasy V.
Was this commercial or fan?
It's a fan one.
Okay.
It was the first one available in the West. Came a long time before. I think it was like 2003 by the time that Square actually did one for the West. And that was part of their port to the PlayStation, and it sucked. It was terrible, and everyone laughed at it. And basically, people who played the Game Boy Advance versions kind of say that that's the superior translation to this 1996 effort. But the really cool thing is like that Miria was in high school when that was happening.
Wow.
And this is a pre-internet time kind of thing. Like the internet existed, but not really everyone had it. They were like emulators were very new, and basically, like there's a problem when you localize things from Japanese into English, which is that Japanese is a much more compressed language. You can fit a lot more syllabic information into a single character, you know? So like it just takes more space on screen, but also in memory to represent English text than it does Japanese text. And so up till that point, what people had done when they were modding games to translate them was basically like just squish the English words into the space where a Japanese word would fit, which is like all these terrible contractions and just dropping entire words from sentences, and like
speech.
Just to fit it all in. Now, what Miria basically invented was the concept of repointering as a high school student, wherein you you figure out where so if you write C, for example, C is a language that has strings as pointers, and so there's a little bit in the code that says, okay, here is a pointer to the part in memory where this part of the dialogue is stored, and what they'll do originally was have a look at that. Okay, that's where the dialogue is stored. I'll try and fit it in here. What Miria invented doing was actually reprogramming the pointer itself and finding a space, and they're still constrained by cartridge space at this point, finding a separate space in the cartridge that had enough for their individual sentence, and change the code so it pointed to this space and put the English in there. So which is a really time intensive process, right? Because and a lot of the time you're pointing to several different spaces just to kind of like get the sentence finished kind of thing. Oh, babe.
This strawberry.
This strawberry. It'll be the sweetest one yet. But yeah, she basically invented that, and the ROM hack was never actually finalized. They basically someone had stolen it and released like an early version of it, which sucked. So they were forced to kind of like give out what they had there and then in 1996. There's like a more like don't play that, play this, and it never like fully got finished. But it's a completely finished game. And I think the best version of Final Fantasy V that you can play. It is absolutely fucking awesome. And yeah, Miria, trans woman as a high school teenager, basically revolutionized SNES ROM hacking. So
wow, fuck yeah, that's awesome. Wow.
Oh, the 3DO porter of Doom was the same person. That's really interesting. Yeah, she got fucked over. She got so fucked over.
Why is diversity so frowned upon? I mean, I know the answer, but let's... Neoliberalism, fascism, it's all fucking... comes down to white supremacy, you know, just uniformity at all costs. So diversity is power.
Elena brings up the Bard's Tale trilogy, which has had a re-release on Steam. And yeah, from what I understand, like she worked on the 3DO port with this other guy who was part of that Bard's Tale thing, and he really did his best, like even recently, to fuck her out of being credited for Bard's Tale, and was even trying to get her dead named in the credits if she had to be in there at all, kind of thing. It's just like, fuck this guy, fuck that guy.
Fuck him. Fuck him.
Yeah.
Wow.
It takes actual effort and energy to be that much of an asshole.
Yep. Yeah.
It really does. You could just not. You could just not be an asshole.
Just not.
Wish J.K. Rowling would take that advice. You could just not post, and people
It's
would
true.
still love you.
Simply
She's
not-
richer than God. She could be doing anything with her time. Like, you can afford any hobby known to man, and you pick transphobia. Like, come on.
Money to just not. She could just do nothing and be happy for the rest of her life.
Yep.
Instead, she chooses to be J.K. Rowling.
I
J.K.
fucking
Rowling
love.
with a choice. Oh, it's
I fucking love Porpentine, Elena. Porpentine is so fucking good. Check out all of her games.
yes!
Oh,
Good work. Hell yeah.
Alina is saying Boppin is a seemingly unassuming puzzle game with graphic violence and harakiri suicide made by a trans girl. Well, oh, that's intense.
Yeah.
What? Yeah. Well, dark media is media too.
Certainly is media.
Like horror puzzle game is a very interesting combination.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, all puzzle games are horror to me. Well, I guess like Resident Evil's pretty puzzle horror.
That's definitely the strat.